This is Bingeworthy, where I tell you why you should watch a TV show, or maybe every Alien movie, as soon and fast as possible. But first, some history behind the chilling adventures of Sabrina. You know Archie comics, those things that have been around since the 60s? Well, Archie has an insane cinematic universe crossing with all kinds of things. Just skimming Wikipedia, he crossed over with The Punisher, Predator, I don't even know what else. Those are just the ones I could find by skimming. Anyway, Sabrina was an original creation of Archie Comics. She first appeared in 1962 as a one-off character, but she was so popular that she got more page space later on. She was also going to get a sitcom in 1969, but that didn't pan out, and she got an episode on an animated Archie series in 1971. 25 years later, in 1996, Sabrina the Teenage Witch ran for 7 seasons, which was the version most of you probably know. Halfway through the live-action show's airing, there was Sabrina the Animated Series, off and on with some movies for a couple of years. All of these have different variations, but the same basic premise. In the original comic, Sabrina was an accidental creation of a potion Hilda and Zelda's gone wrong, which is kind of messed up for something that's supposed to be lighthearted, but whatever. In the live-action 90s version, she didn't know anything until her 16th birthday, and most of the show was teenage hijinks and spells that she shouldn't have been using gone wrong. In the animated series, she's only 12, and most of the canon is based on the original comic. Then, something called Afterlife with Archie happened. It was one of a million series reboots and rebrandings, this time as a grimdark zombie horror setting. It had such a good reception that we got the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. Not that one. This was Sabrina rebooted in a grimdark horror setting. No real need to make up zombies or anything because witches are good enough. Oddly, the comic is almost entirely different from the Netflix show except for the major characters. There aren't any Riverdale characters in the show, and Sabrina doesn't have many friends in the comic, but I'll come back to that later. One thing that struck me about the show is how ambiguous the setting was. It takes place in current year. Greendale is a place out of time. Everything is retro, nobody has a cell phone, and the only thing that actually gave it away was a scene where somebody used a laptop. I can't remember any other identifying anachronicities, and after a certain point, I was actively looking for them, trying to pinpoint exactly what era was it supposed to take place in. It was really interesting. The comic takes place in 1966. The show is more of a classic story of a young girl's struggle to come to terms with her own identity. She has to decide which path she should take, as all the adults around her either force their views on her or are generally useless.
You're only supposed to start missing things after you say goodbye to them, right?
I've been under house arrest with our aunties for the last 75 years, Sabrina. Forbidden from leaving these grounds. I am continuously missing everything.
The central conflict of the story is that everyone wants her to sign the Devil's Book.
If I sign my name in the Book of the Beast, does that mean I'm giving the Dark Lord dominion over my soul?
That's one interpretation. But it's largely a symbolic gesture, as rituals in most religions are.
But she was lied to about how it works, and Satan is clearly
Signing
evil.
his book, the Book of the Beast, you swear to obey without question any order you may receive from the Dark Lord, or from any figure he has placed in authority over you.
That's not what you said before.
The comic, on the other hand, never has her doubting herself, and the central conflict is a much more interesting one, with events of the 3rd chapter being the catalyst of the main plot. I'm trying not to spoil too much here because the stories are completely different after the first episode or chapter, and the comic is great, though it is a lot gorier, so be warned. So enough about the comic, that's its own thing, and while it's good and worth reading, though it releases surprisingly seldomly, I'm here to talk about the Netflix show. There's one thing that really stood out to me in the first 2 episodes, and that's Sabrina's token friends. You have a woman of color, but not too much color, so she's safe. a bullied non-trans girl, and of course, Sabrina's cousin, who is under house arrest as pansexual. Netflix has a tendency to make characters into minorities as virtue signaling, even if there's no reason for their character to be that way. I've noticed this in almost every Netflix original show that I've seen. Most notable is The Witcher, which isn't out yet, where they cast a black character in a role as an albino mutant. Have fun trying to pull that off, Netflix. Here, Sabrina and friends try to create a club to stop her from being bullied, which the white man denies.
You mean like a club to topple the white patriarchy?
Wait, what?
Exactly. To mobilize and protest if we need to get political, to fight when we need to fight, to defend each other, so Susie never feels alone, so none of us do.
But won't Hawthorne block this?
There's a few more scenes like this where politics are randomly inserted into the show with barely any context.
The name, Wicca, Rosalind came up with it.
The Women's Intersectional Cultural and Creative Association, Wicca.
Intersectionality promotes the biggest hoax of all, that we aren't individuals who are to be judged on the basis of how we act, but are merely members of groups to be judged on the basis of our group identity. In other words, you and I, as individuals with our unique experiences, thoughts, and ambitions, count for nothing. Our racial and sexual identity count for everything. It's hard to imagine an idea less likely to produce a free and equal America than that. But what do I know? I'm just a straight white male.
Maybe you're okay with it, and that's fine, I guess, but if you're the type to stop watching over PC nonsense, don't worry. It's just the first 2 episodes, and then it goes away, presumably back to Satan where it came from. I really hate that blatant pandering, but I still finished this show in like 3 days because the rest is so good. I guess they needed some filler at the beginning, but not the way to go. The structure of the show is a bit fractured. In order, you have 3 arc episodes, a main plot episode, 3 Monster of the Week episodes, both of which add to the overarching plot to varying degrees, a 2-episode arc, and the season finale that has plenty of foreshadowing but comes in with the subtlety of a bomb. I think the season could have used either another episode or 2 or spent one of the Monster of the Week episodes building up to the finale. There is a bit of a build-up in terms of character development, but the problem that needs solving is only hinted at a couple times and pretty much starts and finishes quickly. That said, the character development, as much as they are a bit trite, unfolds slowly over the course of the full 10 episodes, with each of them having their own old family secrets, and they end up as cool problem solvers at the last episode. Again, I just wish there was more time for them to show it off because it gets hyped up enough while Sabrina's dealing with an Inception demon. December 14th we'll see a special episode called A Midwinter's Tale, and Season 2 has already been confirmed, which it thoroughly deserves. Until then, I'll be making more episodes in the Bingeworthy series, and you can see them in this playlist here. Like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends who might like the show. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you around.